right now, Barry is going to present the strategic plan, which you all have a copy of. Hopefully you've read it.
I have.
You haven't read it.
I'll just grab this over so I can put my Good morning. No, good afternoon. Sorry, I got that wrong. My presentation will be quite brief because you're going to get to know the plan. You've got a copy of it, and you've got to know it in a lot more detail because you're going to have to be formed into breakout groups to discuss it. So the plan starts with the objectives. The Trust has one overarching objective, and that is to help rural and isolated adults gain the literacy and numeracy skills that for various reasons they don't have. However, we cannot implement a plan to achieve this objective unless we have funds and unless we have the necessary infrastructure, management skills and the tools that we need. And Christine was talking about some of those things. A sad fact of life I find in being associated with charitable trusts is most of them spend more than 50% of their time not doing what it is they actually want to do, but doing all the other stuff that they need to do to enable them to do that. And that's probably getting worse as time goes on. So the Trust necessarily has three objectives, and these are, with respect to tuition, provide a minimum of 10 hours tuition to at least 70 active students. That's what we really want to do. To enable us to do that, we have to secure funding for 2007 of $100,000 to cover wages and nearly $33,000 to cover infrastructure costs.
Can I just ask how many hours are being done at the moment for how many students? Like,
I'll get on to that.
What are you jumping up from?
Yeah, you're jumping on a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
I'll get on to that a bit later on. This is okay. In addition to getting the money, we've then got to provide the infrastructure, management and tools to achieve the above. That's what we have to do. Okay, I can assure you that in setting those targets, Joe and her team didn't set soft targets. It was always going to be a stretch to achieve those objectives. For each of those objectives, the Trust then developed strategies to achieve them. So we have a look at the tuition objective. How are we going to achieve that? As Christine outlined, we're using a call centre to make marketing calls. We're improving the collection of data from volunteers. We're forming relationships with representatives who call on farmers and may know of literacy problems on farms for the distribution of our first contact cards. I worked in the dairy industry and I know from experience there are a lot of people that call on farmers. Tanker drivers call on farmers. Fertiliser reps call on farmers. Beef and lamb representatives call on farmers. There's a lot of people call on farmers. If we're trying to help rural communities, it helps us if we are in contact with those people who are in contact with farmers. We're trying to convert literacy, interest in literacy hubs into real students by better follow-up. So if we send something out, as Christine said, we ring up, try and find out what happened. And get representation at field days around New Zealand, another way we can get in contact with those people. Strategies for funding. There are lots of different ways that Trust can get funding. Probably the main way is from grants. So with grants it's business as usual, but we're going to try and incorporate wages into projects. A huge problem I've found with all of the charitable trusts I've been involved in is that funders do not like to fund salaries and wages. They want to fund something that they can see, a computer, something tangible. They don't like funding salaries and wages, and that is always going to be, in my experience, the biggest problem you've got is getting funding for salaries and wages. So can you actually say that you want to carry out a project and you want them to fund the project and the project includes salaries and wages, so you're not actually telling them that it's salaries and wages, you're trying to get funding for a project. You've got to be a bit clever about how you do it. Okay, sponsorship. Sponsorship is getting someone to pay you some money in exchange for you doing something for them. And what can you do for them? Well, you can tell the rest of the world that they're good people for funding what you do. So you're trying to get them to fund maybe some activity you carry out, or maybe to fund a particular student. Maybe you can get a local community to fund a student to come to you. But that's different from a grant because they expect you to do something for them. Additional income. The Trust has looked at earning additional income by providing literacy training for other organisations. I know working in the dairy industry, you might discover that you have a problem because some of the people that you want to do things don't actually know how to read and write. They can't follow safety instructions. They don't know what health and safety rules are. So you might like to bring in someone like Joe's team and say, please train these people so that we don't have a problem at the worksite. Philanthropy, appealing to people through things like Give a Little, setting up a Friends and Supporters campaign, approaching service groups like Lion and Rotary. Christine outlined that. Bequests, this is asking people to leave some money to you in their will. I know many of the charitable trusts that have been associated with are getting into bequests in a big way. So if you're an older person in a retirement village, you're going to probably get one of these things once a week. Social enterprise, setting up some sort of activity which has a product in keeping with our core business. Try and make a bit of money out of that. And then government funding. Government funding is nice to have, but it entails a great deal of extra compliance work. They want you to fill in all the paperwork. They're quite bureaucratic. So you've got to investigate whether the cost of you doing all this additional work and also the controls that surround you, so that you can't do this, or if you're going to do it, you have to do it their way and not your way. Is that going to be worthwhile, or are you better off saying, no, we're going to do things our way and not have the funding? Strategies for infrastructure management and tools. I always find this is a very much a chicken and egg situation. So do you build the infrastructure and wait for the students to come, which is pretty expensive, and this trust, like most, can't actually afford it? Or do you get the students to come and then build the infrastructure? Which means when the students start coming in the door, you don't actually have the infrastructure in place, which is not really very easy. So the best thing to do, I believe, is what Joe and the team are doing, and that's make contingency plans. So we won't put the structure in there, but we'll have a contingency plan in case more people or fewer people come in. If more come in, great, can we do more with volunteer workers? So can we get that going very quickly? But that's the sort of knife edge that these people live on. If a lot come in, we aren't able to cope with them. If the people don't come in, well, how are we going to actually survive? Then we've got too many people and we've promoted too much money. So you've now got your objectives, but I'm sure many of you have heard the saying that a plan without action is only a dream. So the next big task for the Trust is implementation. How are we actually going to get this to happen? Responsibility for implementation was assigned to specific people, and a breakdown of the plan was created on Microsoft Project. To ensure effective implementation, actual outcomes are measured against the plan. So what do? We measure project in terms of, is the implementation being achieved on time? Is the implementation being achieved within budget? And is the quality of the implementation what it needs to be? Are we getting the whole thing done, or are we only half finishing it? Finally, in reviewing the strategic plan, Joe and the trustees need to be aware of the risks that could threaten the plan, the achievement of the plan's objectives. We need to make sure we know what the risks are and to know how we're going to deal with them if a risk arises. Not surprisingly, the Trust's greatest risk is funding. If we don't get the money, we can't provide the service. Simple as that. The next risk is not having the people required to perform the tasks, and this is particularly significant in relation to volunteers. And thirdly is a related risk, and that's overwhelming the staff and volunteers that we've actually got in place. And I'll have to say that I think Christine and Wendy and others work exceptionally hard. So that's the strategic plan. It's quite simple, but as I've said to you, I'm familiar with quite a number of boards of directors and boards of trustees, and have to say that many organisations 10 or more times larger than this trust haven't got anything, a strategic plan, anything like as good as this. This is very well done. It's simple, but it's very well done. So congratulations to Joe and the team. We're now getting close to the end of the year, so how has actual performance been? And this is a question you asked. With respect to tuition, we have 120 students currently involved, but we do not have data about tuition hours, so I'm afraid I can't answer the question you asked. After a huge amount of work by Trustee, our call centre systems and experience are much improved, and we expect real progress to be made in that area in 2018 rather. We have struggled for staff in 2017, a side effect of which has been the problems collecting data from volunteers. Good contact has been made with Beef and Lamb New Zealand and their field reps now regularly distribute our first contact cards. And we have a small company willing to take 30 packs of our first contact cards to the Hamilton Field Days next year. So we're making progress on those things. Funding. In summary, our goal was to get 100,000 for wages. We're likely to reach only 79.5 by the end of the year. One outcome of this, and I'd like to mention this, was that we could not pay Wendy and Trustee for 9 weeks in April and May. But did they stop working? No, they kept going unpaid. So I wonder if I could get you to join with me in a round of applause for that. Thank you very much.
My wages run out next week. Again.
On infrastructure costs, this is we're going to get more than what we asked for. And it comes back to organisations being willing to fund some things but not fund others. And salaries and wages is always a big problem. Because of staffing issues, our planned initiatives for sponsorship, income earning training and philanthropy have not been able to be implemented to the extent that we've wanted. However, we are receiving regular grants, some of which are coming from organisations which have never funded us before. So that's working reasonably well. Further flyers for our bequest program have been sent out. Our quality assurance standards are nearing completion, and this will be a prerequisite should we decide to seek government funding. Infrastructure. I won't go into a lot of detail here. There is quite a bit of detail in the plan that you've got. But Joe is constantly having to look at ways to do things differently, to use technology to better advantage, to combine roles, to improve communications, and to get rid of administrative tasks. Welcome to life in a charitable trust. Personally, I cannot believe the size of the bang that Jo and her team get from the very few bucks that they have. So, now, are there any questions?
If I could just answer something else that you said there about grants. The grants that we apply for specific things. So the money that comes in has to be spent on whatever it is we've applied for. So if we applied to buy some envelopes, we have to buy some envelopes with it. So untagged money is very few and far between it, and this we are actually paying with some donations from the Lions Club. So it's how we managed to pay for this, because we couldn't get a grant to pay for it. So we don't get extras and frills at all that we can just go out and buy.
One of the things that concerns the Trust Board and I think the staff is that it's costing a lot for a few students, even with all the economies. But our theory is, and Barry touched on it, that once we have a basic infrastructure, it's very easy to expand. And we should be able to double or triple the number of students without a great deal of extra cost. So that's the plan.
You can see, I hope just that brief explanation gives you an idea of the amount of work you actually have to do to be able to try and then start doing what it is you really want to do. There's a huge amount of stuff that has to just happen before you can get to the starting line. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.